Good morning, everybody. I have a request on how to create a sofa in two-point perspective room. So what I did was I found a sofa that I like. I'm going to put it against this wall, which is in two-point perspective, and I'll show you the steps for making the sofa. I'm going to post it as a video so that you'll be able to see step by step how I would approach doing this, all right? So let's get started. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to figure out where my horizon line is, and I want to figure out, is the top of the sofa taller or shorter than my horizon line. Because the horizon line is low and the ceiling is so high, I'm going to make it a little taller. In order to get started, I want to put in some guidelines as to where I want to place the sofa, and once I have those guidelines in place, then I can start with the painting and drawing tools to put them in place to actually build the sofa. So let's come out, and let's say the sofa is about that height on the wall. It's a little higher than the horizon. Okay, so the horizon line is here. I can turn that on and off as I need it just by turning it off. I'm using for my vanishing points the very edges of the horizon line where they touch the paper, so I didn't need to put any additional marks in there for that. So now looking at this, but the picture is not showing it well, but the way this couch works is it's got a low back. The pillows are coming up that high, but it looks like to my eyes that we're kind of inside a box shape, which is this area here. I'm going to put that box in first, then I'll extend it up to where the pillows are and so forth, and start making cutouts for where the arms and legs are going to go. All right, and keep in mind that this is in direct in one-point perspective. The arms are pointing back here to a vanishing point up here someplace. So we're not going to see it like this. I'm just using this as an example for myself for how I want to build the couch. One of the first things I want to do is I wanted to decide this corner back here, how far is that away from the corner in the wall? If I have windows or doors in the way, I might want to move it further over this way. I'm going to work in here though. It'll be the same procedure. It's just you'll need to move it to a place where you have a place to fit it. So I'm going to click and drag a straight line down. This is the back corner on the left side of the sofa. Notice I'm going a little bit lower than the wall because it's standing out from the wall. I need to know how far out is it standing. So that's my first line there. The other thing that I wanted to say is if this, where the arms are, continues behind, so it's sort of a boxy shape, I need to get that line in at the top across here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to my vanishing point over here with the line tool, and I'm going to draw a line and say that that height is going to be about here. And again, I'm coming out further probably than I need to, and that's just to make it easier for me. So now this is going to continue behind and here because we're at an angle, and on the side we would see that. So I want to make sure that we're seeing that. And I'll put in the other edge here. Remember, the pillows aren't coming out that far either. The other edge I can actually put from here down to here, but in order to get that right, I need another line. So I'm going to start here on this vanishing point again. See where the bottom is of that vertical line there? That's how far out it's going to be from the wall. And you can notice as it moves closer to my side, it will appear to be further and further out from the wall because that's the way kind of perspective works. And then the vertical line, I don't have to go all the way up to the cushions. I'm going to go to here and drop in that vertical line, and if I hit shift, it'll go straight. So this is basically the back of the sofa, and that's where I'm working from. Now, to start getting in where the rest of that box that I want to make, I got to start getting in the depth. So to do that, I need to come from the other vanishing point, and I'm going to go to each of these places where it crosses here and figure out how far I want it to come. Probably best if I come out farther than I intend so that I have some room to work. I'm going to, just to make it easier, I added a new layer. It will automatically make a new layer, but sometimes it'll put the different lines on the same layer, and that's not what I want to happen. Right now I'm just making a three-dimensional in perspective box. You already know how to do that. Let's go from this end, and we'll figure out how far out do we want the couch to come. So let's bring it out that far. That's going to give us Some room for pillows. That's good. All right. So now I got to bring lines down, but how far down is the question, right? So in order to be able to know that, I'm going to come from this end and go through this bottom corner here, and I'm going to bring it out far enough, at least to this point up here, because I got to drop a line here, shift and drag, line to the ground. And also I wanted to notice that the couch that I chose has legs that are standing, so that's where they're touching the ground. But I could put in another line for where the tops of the legs are going to be, because the box is a little taller. If you were thinking that the box itself is the couch, not the legs, then it's a little taller than it should be. Now we're going to go to this end, because remember, this is like an external building, right? When we're interior, we're going to the opposite vanishing points. When we're exterior, which is what we're doing with a couch, it's going to go to the vanishing points on the same side. So this side of the couch we're going to define by bringing a line here. Now I just need to drag down a fully vertical line here. And if I hold shift, that should be vertical. I haven't defined this back piece yet, and I really in actuality won't see that. But if I've drawn it correctly in perspective, this line should come from here to there, and they should meet, and they do. They meet up perfectly. So that's an indication that my overall big box is correct. I do need to figure out the back of the couch, but I'm not going to see any of that, so I'm just going to leave that out. So I don't need to worry too much about the back that I'm not going to see. So now I want to figure out the pillows are going to come up to here. How deep in are they going to go? There's probably some formula you could use to figure out how to make these arms of the couch about the right width. I'm just going to estimate, so I'm going to go from here to here to make the top part of the arm. That would be this surface you're seeing over here. And I know it's going in the opposite direction because we're in 2-point perspective, right? I want to go from here, and this is going to be bigger than this will look, and that's because of foreshortening. When we're in perspective, things that are farther away get into foreshortening. And then I'm going to, from here, draw another guide here. And this is starting to look like a mess, right? We'll clean up some of that, so don't worry. So I've got another guide going to here. That's defining where the bottom of the cushions are over here. And I got to come down now with some vertical lines. So I'm going to go shift and drag it down to that line, and shift and drag it down right to that line. Okay, so now I still got to put in some couch cushions, the back ones and the top ones, right? And then the legs also have to go in. I do have to decide on the depth too. How far back is the part behind the pillows where we're not seeing in this picture? So I'm going to put in another line over here just to figure that out. And that can go right up to there. It doesn't have to go all the way. That looks like a decent amount of backing. Now, I'm going to turn off the video for a minute, and I'm going to just bring back the parts of the lines we don't need anymore so we can just see the couch. So for example, just so that you know what I'm going to do, this line here, I'm going to drag that over to that corner. And I'm just going to do that with each of these lines so that what you're seeing is the structure of the couch. You're not seeing all the other lines that are happening in here. I do need to get this line in, so let's put that in before I do that. So I'm going to go back to my line tool, and I'm going to go to this vanishing point and come right to that corner there. All right, so I think that's enough, and then I'll start putting in the cushions as well. But it's getting confusing to look at all those lines. But I think you can see here's the main structure of the boxy part of the couch. This is where the legs are going to go in this space below. This is just the space between the couch and the floor that I've defined here. And these are the arms of the couch. This is the widths of the arms of the couch. And this is the back of the couch. And then there's going to be some pillows sitting up over here and some pillows coming out over here. All right, so from that point on, I'm just going to start getting in the things I need, and then we'll start drawing in the couch. Okay, so I need a line from this corner here. It's going to go through to that corner and to this corner, and if my perspective is good, it should be spot on perfect. A lot of this I'm not going to see, so if I'm off a little bit, it's not such a tragedy. And also to get this line where I need it to be, I gotta draw. That's gonna help me align my couch cushions, even though I'm not going to see that right now. And I'm going to bring a line down from this corner, down straight, holding shift so it's straight down. So now I've got the base of the seat defined. Let's go back to those couple of lines and back to my direct selection tool and shorten those up to be where they need to be. And line 1. And I can merge these all into the guidelines. So I'm going to merge shapes and I'm going to rename it guide lines. Okay, so now I have the basic guide of where I want my couch. I want to put in some couch cushions. So the way to do that would be some more lines. Again, I'm using my vanishing points because it's still in perspective. So let's figure out how high we want this bottom cushion to come. These are not very thick cushions. These are kind of thin cushions. So I'm going to start with a line from this vanishing point and put it in for the height of what I think the cushion should be. And I'm going to figure out the base of that here. And then coming back to the other side, I want to come to this corner. I can start here if I want to and go to the vanishing point. And then from this corner, if I'm pretty accurate, I should be going right through that and to the vanishing point. And then I can use my direct select tool and walk some of that back where it needs to be so that it's not so hard to see. We've defined where the cushions are going to go. We don't have a center line yet for the cushions. Again, I'm going to eyeball it just for the sake of brevity. So I'm going to draw that in to about there. This cushion that's closer to us should appear to be, because if we're shortening, bigger than this cushion. And then from there, I want to bring a line straight down for the division between the cushions. Shift and drag down right to here. So now I have the two cushions separated. I'm going to go back to the line below that and go back to my direct select tool. And by the way, the shortcut for that is to hit the letter A. So if I just hit the letter A, I could go to that tool a little more easily. Okay, so I have my cushion placed. And again, the cushions are a little more rounded, so I'm going to do that with the paintbrush tool. And then I got to figure out, where does this cushion divide? This way? Well, they meet up. So let's start from that corner and draw, holding shift, a line straight up. So that's going to be the back of the center of the back cushions. The top is kind of narrow. Let's take a look at the picture again. We can't really see the top, but I'm imagining it comes to almost a point. It's kind of narrow. Again, these are not thick, fluffy cushions. These are kind of flatter cushions. So I'm going to use my line tool from this vanishing point and draw in where I want the thickness of that top to be. It's going to be somewhere a little higher actually than the back. Let's just bring it out and we can figure it out from the other side. Because we're above the horizon line, we're not going to see the top of the cushion. We're just going to know that there's something behind there. Now this is going to come through there and keep going until it hits that line or crosses that line. That's going to determine the thickness of our cushion in the back. And we need one going from here. I'm thinking the cushions are a little thick because where they cross here. So I have these two lines in place. I'm going to move that other line. So in order to move the end of that line, same thing, I'm going to hit A, or I'm going to use my direct select tool, click on there, and I can just drag that point down further. So it doesn't have to be that much thickness to the cushions. That'll give me a thinner cushion coming down. So long as the other one stays anchored to the vanishing point, I can set really the thickness of my cushion there. Okay. So now let me go back to my line tool. That would be hitting U and dropping a vertical line. So shift, drag it down to this base here. We also have from the center, which we're not seeing here, coming out. Once I trim the other lines, you'll see I'll put that in. But for now, let's just get this in. So I'm going to drop this down, holding shift so it stays perfectly vertical. And I'm coming down to the top of the cushion, like that. And I'm missing a line back here. It's got to go from here to here. And then this line has to be made a little bit longer to meet up with that, right there. Okay. Now to get this middle one in right, let's reduce those lines first. Understanding the structure of the couch is going to really help here. So you see I'm starting to really develop something that's looking like a couch. The lines for the room are kind of confusing the couch a little bit. So if I wanted to, I could come down to where it says room and just make that invisible. And now you can kind of see a couch in perspective. I left the horizon line so we can see. That's going to fit nicely into that room, and all I have to do now is start painting it in. One of the things I could do is merge all these guidelines. Let's come all the way up to the top and merge all those shapes. We'll call this couch. So now I can start painting inside that shape, and I have my basic couch. If I wanted to keep the sort of squareness of the couch, I could just start doing some fills here. So long as there are no openings left, we should be able to fill that. In fact, we could even start with fills. Thinking about where the light source is coming from, we can start filling in some of these things, and then we can paint over it, which is probably the faster, easier way to do things. If we look at the light source on this one, it's clearly coming from over here, somewhere to the left of the couch and above. So the tops are highlight, the tops of the cushions. This cushion is brighter than this one. But also if you look at the inside here, the light's able to get to that, but it's dark over here, so it's not able to get to that. Under the cushions is darker, especially in this corner. This arm of the couch in the front is darker than that one. So if we have similar lighting, we can use that as a guide to figure out how to light it. So now I can start working on some fills where I'm going to see things and where I'm not going to see things. I'm just going to kind of erase those out at some point. All right, so Command 0 to, I'm on a Mac, so it would be Control 0 if you're on a PC. All right, and again I want to merge this all together so they're all part of one shape, so I'm going to hit Shift, select them all, and merge all those shapes together. And at this point, if I want, I can rasterize them because I'm not going to adjust that anymore, although I will possibly take out some of the bottom here. So now let's rasterize this so that we can start painting in some colors. Let's do a sort of lightish gray for the highlight areas, and we're going to figure out where those highlight areas are. I'm going to click OK for that, and go to my paint bucket tool, which you can hit G, the shortcut, or if your G brings up the gradient tool, you click and hold the gradient tool and it becomes the paint bucket tool over here. They're stacked together, and G will get you either. All right. So remember, this is a highlight. This area is also highlight. There is going to be some shadow from where the pillows are going to block the light, so I'm going to get that in later. And also in these areas where I'm seeing the couch through, I can go to my paintbrush tool and I could come in and add full opacity, just get rid of those. I don't have to erase the lines, but I do want them to be painted over. That's going to help me figure out what boxes I need to fill out the more I start to get of this, right? So again, we're looking, the front of this cushion is pretty light, so I want to fill this box over here. So I'm going to go back, hit G, and fill that box. And of course it's filling the back part. Those dark lines we're going to have to figure out. So that's all of that box that I would see. And if I come in with my paintbrush tool, I can clean that up. Let's just go in here a little bit. I want to get those top pieces. All right, so back to the paintbrush tool, I could hit B to go to my paintbrush tool and just start painting over some of these back lines that I would not see. Looks like smoothing is on, so it kind of moves slower. If I want to speed it up and make my brush work faster, I'll turn off smoothing. Not too worried about the integrity of the black lines because I want to get rid of those anyway. When I paint the edges, for right now I'm just getting in as close as I can to get rid of as much of that black line as I can. Then I'll make my brush a little smaller so I can get the corners without damaging too much. Okay, let me zoom out. Command 0 or Control 0. The front here, this section here, is actually darker. on this end, but it's light on that side. So I'm going to drop in the lighter color where I can. So let's go back to the paint bucket tool. Okay, and we're going to paint some of this a little darker, but for now I'm going to get the lighter color in there. There's a lot of little boxes in here that are going to be covered up, and those are just a consequence of making the guidelines. So let's go Command 0. This one has to go also. And I'm going to get my brush tool. Let's zoom in so I can see what I'm doing better. And I'm going to get the darks in. It will help tremendously if I do. For now, I'm just going with basic colors. And the lines that I need to keep, I'll keep until right up until the end. I'm going to a combination of just clicking to cover and click and drag when I can. And let's get that brush a little smaller to get in that space there. It's still not small enough. There we go. Let's zoom out again, Command 0. This front piece here is also one of the highlight, but it's darker in the corner. Again, I'm going to get the darkers in the corners later. This is actually lighter, the cushion here, and a little bit on the top here too. So maybe I'm just going to go a little lighter on those. But let's get this cushion in with the base color, the local color. Again, I'm going to cover all those things. And you'll eventually figure out which boxes you need to fill just by practice. Let's go back to the G and come in here. If you have trouble getting something, don't hesitate to zoom in so that you can see what you're doing. Okay, so now I'm going to come back to my brush tool and make it bigger. And go significantly bigger so it goes a little faster. In here, this edge over here is probably darker because it's away from our light source. So I'm going to come in and clean that up a little, or I'm going to change the color when I get to a darker color. For now though, I'm going to get rid of the lines that are in it. I don't want to get rid of the other line over here, that support line that shows the difference between the top and the edge of the cushion. I want that to stay visible. Alright. Then I'm going to zoom back out again so we can see. So what do we got here? I said I'm going to do the tops a little bit lighter. The fronts go a little bit darker, especially towards this end. And just like this is dark, and the edges of this are dark, this edge is going to be dark. So let's choose a slightly darker color. So I'm going to go there and I'm going to go down or to the right, makes you darker or more colorful. This is more colorful, this is darker. So I'm just going to go plain old darker. And I'm going to fill in this section here with my bucket tool. So I'm going to go G. And I got a lot of filling in to do over here just to get all those sections. Alright, probably this edge is going to be that same color. And probably in here will be that same color. So now I can come in with my paintbrush tool. So go to B, and I can get rid of those lines, as I no longer need any of those lines. I'm not going to worry too much if I go a little bit over the edge, because I'm going to do some finished painting on that, and we're going to put a material on it as well. You can see how it's really starting to look like a sofa at this point. It's got some hard edges. Sofas tend to be more rounded, so with the paint we'll figure that out, how to kind of soften the edges a little bit. If you look at this painting, the edges are kind of rounded and soft, and these are very hard edges. So I don't really necessarily want that, but I do want some separations in the cushions for now and get things looking the way they should look. Alright, so let's go with a slightly lighter color for the tops. So I'm going to go to here. I'm going to pick this color so that I know I'm going lighter. I'm going to go up higher, and I'm going to change some of this. I'm going to go to my bucket tool. Don't worry that this one is going back into the shadow. I can darken part of that. I'm going to change the tops. Let's go with this for the top of that pillow, and we're going to do the same with the top of this pillow. And the edge, let's just do the edge in the lighter color so that we can see it pretty well. So what I'm going to do now is come back to my paintbrush tool. So I'm going to hit the letter B, and I don't want to get that middle divider between the cushions, but I do want to get in much of this stuff. I suggest zooming in a bit so you can see what you're doing. So I'm going to hit Z and zoom into this area up here. And now go back to my brush tool so I can actually see and get only the parts that I want. I missed a little section in there. I can come in with the paintbrush tool and get that, or I can use my bucket fill tool and fill it, either way. The brush is a little big to get some of these pieces without hitting the edges, so I'm going to do a couple of things. I want to scroll here a little bit so I can see more of that, and I want to make my brush smaller, so I'm going to come up here, change it, and change the size of the brush so that I can get in closer to those edge lines. And we don't have to make this perfect because we're going to round those corners anyway. So in here, probably easier with the paint fill tool. So I'm going to get in there, fill that little triangle, and then go back to the brush tool and try and knock out the line without taking out too much of the cushion. Okay, again I'm going to go Command 0, which is Control 0, and you can see I got a pretty good couch in perspective now. I still have to put in the legs. I still would need to do some other things here. I definitely want to do some more painting to get some of the highlights and shadows, some separation in the cushions, get some of the shadows in here, and just really work it well. I'm going to do a little bit of that and then I'll come back, but let's put in the legs first. So how do I align the legs? So if you look at this picture, the legs of the couch are not right at the edges. They're inset a little bit in both directions. So I want them not to come right down to here. I'm going to move them in a little bit and move them in both directions. So I need some guidelines for that. So let's put in a couple more guidelines. So I'm going to go hit U, and I'm going to go from this corner. This is just pulling it in from the front side a little bit. So we're moving it in just a little bit from the front edge. And I want to also move it in from the corner so that they are in where they need to be. I may see some of this one, so I'm going to come here. Once I draw these legs, I'm just going to completely get rid of all these bottom guides. We won't need to see those anymore. And I need one from this side to show me how far in I'm going to put the leg over here. And because of foreshortening, that'll look closer to this edge than this one does. So now, how do I do a leg? Let's merge those 4 guides together just to clean up my layers panel. So to merge the shape and call them guides. So now, there are a couple ways to make legs. You can draw them in freehand with the paintbrush tool. You can use the cylinder, you can use a pen tool, and then paint them to look 3-dimensional, right? And think about where the light is and stuff. So I think the pen tool is probably the best way to do it for me. But I also want to be down below the couch. So on my room layer, I'm going to add a new layer. And I'm going to call this legs. And I'm going to actually be seeing 3 legs on this couch. I'm going to see part of this one, which I'm barely seeing in this picture here. I'm going to see this one, and I'm going to see this one, but I'm not going to see that one because that would be way back underneath the couch. So we would not see that one at all. All right, using the pen tool, so I'm going to hit P for the pen tool. And what I'd like to do is figure out a spot that's kind of a little vertical. I want it to be symmetrical, so I'm going to drag out a guide here and put it right on that corner. So now I have a blue guide. I'm going to do that for each of the legs I need to draw in. I have them placed right on that corner where it's going to meet, and that's going to really help me make it symmetrical. I'm going to zoom in a bit, so I'm going to hit Z, and I got to hit the plus sign here, and zoom in a little on this corner because it's going to be hard to get that guide in place, as small as that was. While I'm zoomed in, I'll work on this leg. And since it's below, I don't have to worry about if it goes under the couch, right? So let's go back to my pen tool, hit P, and I want it to be in the shape. And I don't really want a stroke. I'm going to get rid of what look like strokes anyway. So I want to turn off stroke. I want to give it a fill. And I could give it a gradient fill, or I could just come back and do some direct painting. I'm just going to go with sort of a generalized brownish color, and I can paint from there. Just choose that one. I can click in the color picker and customize that to something more of what I want. and I'll be able to be painting now in that color. So I'm going to click on this side of the line. I'm going to come down to here and just drag a little to give it a little bit of a curve. And then I'm going to hold down on my Mac, it's Option. If you're working on a PC, you would be holding down Alt. And then somewhere about equal distance here, I'm going to click, and that's going to draw the other part of the shape, and then I'm just going to close the shape. And you see, because I did it on a layer lower than the couch, I'm only seeing part of it, and I could be okay with that just the way it is. I can work here, do pretty much the same thing. It's going to look a little thicker over here, so I'm going to be a little wider. So I'm going to click up here, I'm going to click down here and drag just a little curve. Hit Option or Alt to drag this up so it's kind of the same angle as that, and then come about the same distance over here, and then click there to close it. Let's go to the third one, and this is the corner here. So again, this is close, so it's going to be about the same as the other one, so I want to be about the same distance. More of it is hidden under the couch, so I'm going to be a little higher in there, and I want to bend this arrow up again, that selector be out here, and then close it. Now I want to zoom out. Alright, so let's clean that up so we can see it now. So I'm going to go to View, Clear Guides, so those blue guides go away. And I'm also going to go to these different shapes. These are legs, so I'm going to combine all my legs onto one layer. And so we're going to merge the shapes and call them legs, and eventually we can merge the couch and the legs together as well. I can get rid of the guides, so those guides are gone. Now I just have to get rid of these other guides that we put down that were kind of merged into the couch layer. And I've got a pretty decent couch there. It's in perspective to the room, it's in 2-point perspective. It's a lot of work to do a couch. Couches have a lot of parts, but getting it all in the way we would see it is important. This is off here. I'm just noticing this here. I kind of messed that up. So I'm going to fix that. All right. So you can see now we got a room with the couch in it, and it's looking more appropriate now. I got to still do some direct painting, add a texture over it, and continue with working. But you can see that's the basic way to get a couch set up and done. So I just wanted to show you, I put on a little bit of a drop shadow effect. I also dropped some color onto the floor and walls. I haven't put any textures on yet, but the drop shadow is kind of helping give it that 3D effect. And I can make some adjustments here. So I'm angling it from where I think the light should be, and depending upon how high and what angle the light's at, it's going to affect the way the shadow is. I can change the distance from the wall and from the floor. I can change the amount of spread that spreads it out more or less, and the size of the drop shadow itself. It's going to kind of blur out more toward the ends. So that's kind of adding a bit of realism to it. I can also change the opacity. The opacity is at 50% right now. I can go down to make it a little bit more transparent, so it looks a little bit more realistic. Alright, and some of the leg here got some shadow on it, even though I put it on the same layer. But that's okay, we can paint and deal with all those things. And just to show you that adding the effects like the drop shadow also help make it look more natural and realistic in the room. I still got to get rid of the lines, add in shadow behind this area over here, figuring out where the light is and kind of painting it darker here will help. Also figuring out some of this will be cast darker over here. This is going to be pushed in a little bit more, but not quite as black. I want to tone down those black edges, and I want to start adding some indications of roundness to it as well. So that's where I am with it right now. I zoomed in and I'm looking at a little bit of some messy things over here that I want to take care of. I'm going to hit B to go to my paintbrush tool. I'm going to clean these things up. I set my paintbrush a little bigger, and I made it soft because at the edges I kind of want it to start to get a rounded appearance, and the softer brush will kind of help that. Instead of hard edges, it's going to kind of soften it a little bit. The transition area between the darker and lighter colors is going to help fix that. Toward the edges, I probably want to go with a harder brush in the back just to get rid of that line. But right now, the softer brush is on these edges and overlapping the other color a little bit. And here I can hit shift and come straight down and get a pretty decent line. All right, so you see how the edge is starting to look kind of soft now. I want to figure out the line here is going back where the shadow is. I want to go to kind of a harder edge to get some of this. I want to get it even darker than this dark side over behind here. So I'm going to choose that color and then also come a little darker than that. So I'm going to go down maybe way over here and make my brush smaller. So I'm avoiding going outside the lines a bit. I'm going to right click on couch and select pixels, and then I can only paint in on where the couch is. So I'm going to go kind of out on an angle this way and paint in here. And when I get to the edge, I can go over there a little bit and hit shift and drag it down so that I'm making a straight line right at that edge. And I want to go out it that way. And then for the rest of the shadow here, I'm going to go out in that angle also, but I want to use a softer brush. So I'm going to go to a very soft brush and go with a slightly lighter shadow color. So I'm going to go up above that a little bit and get it kind of as close to that edge as possible without going over too much, because I don't want to really wipe that out. I need to be able to see where one cushion ends and one starts. So slow and zoom in, working slowly. And if I get this where I need it to be, I'm going to go smaller on my brush to get the corner. Getting what you need is real important. I'm going to bring that back that way so it's still sort of in perspective. This should be getting softer and fuzzier as it gets out this way. I'm going to come in and make that lighter and softer. Trying to get these lines as straight as possible is also good. So to achieve that, probably getting the smoothing turned back on will help, and going right along the edge as close as possible. Give me a much smoother line there. Again, I don't have to worry about going over because I have the object selected. We can actually go right back to the corner here. See how it kind of trails when you have smoothing on? So work is slower, but it's straighter and neater. So for that section, I don't need the smoothing. I'm just going to turn it down and clean that up. And then when I come out of there, you'll see that it's going to kind of look a little bit like a smoother shadow. And what I need to kind of do is probably soften a lot of that somewhat. So let me zoom out. I'm going to go Command 0 to zoom out. It's kind of looking real too dark. So let's take some of this lighter color and pull it in. So I'm going to use my smudge tool, and let's zoom in again, Z, and go back to the smudge tool, and it's at 24. I'm going to go a little bit more strength than that because I kind of need more smudging over here to kind of push that back a little bit. The shadow shouldn't be so far up. I want to soften this edge here a little bit, so I'm going to pull some of the dark into here. Maybe get some of that highlight into there. So again, it's not always about putting more paint down where you see it. Sometimes it's about getting that color pushed from one area to make this brush a little smaller. So I can get this edge here. And I'm trying to soften the edge. Keep it soft, but at the same time make it look like a straight edge. I don't want it to look like a curve. Like it's broken, I want it to look like a couch. Smoothing that transition between things. This is kind of helpful. Don't be afraid to back out of something if it's not working. May come in a little lighter for over here. Add some lighter color that I could work in. So I'm going to go to my paintbrush tool and my color picker and pick a lighter color here. a little darker than this, but not quite as dark as what I'm seeing. And I'm going to just gently with a soft brush, it's pretty soft. I'm going to just paint some in. I'll go larger with the brush. Just a couple of dabs here that I can work in. Now I'm going to go back to my smudge tool, bring that darker color back over some of that. And I want to drag some of this around so that I'm getting the darker right behind the cushion, but it's kind of fading a bit as it goes out away from the cushion. I'm getting these three colors, actually four colors here. You get this dark, you have this darkest, you have the side over here, which is also dark. And just soften it a little bit and keep pushing it together so that it looks like one transition based upon the lighting in the room. So I'm going to zoom out and see what that looks like. That's getting better. Alright, take a look and see how you can do that to the other parts of the couch. You definitely want to soften off those edges, the lines, but at the same token you don't want to lose the fact that the couch is somewhat linear. Okay, so I used a couple of the painting techniques I was talking about in class the other day to kind of work the colors and edges and try to give it a little bit more shape, and I think it's coming out pretty well. I haven't done much with the legs yet, but I wanted to show you how to put a material over there so that the couch itself looks like, rather than just paint, it looks like it's got some material on it. So that's what we're going to do in this next section. Okay, so I found an image that I like. I'm going to take that image and drag it into my page, and it's the same as what we've done with other images before. The question is, do I lay it over the whole thing? How am I going to get it on there? So let's move this and size it for where we want it. So I'm going to basically cover the whole material. So I'm going to go Edit, Scale, so Transform, Scale, and I want to drag it and hold down Shift so that I'm not distorting it too badly. And I want it to basically cover the whole thing. It's kind of big for this image, but we're just going to leave it as is for now. I'm going to click the check mark, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to the couch layer, and I'm going to right click in there and select pixels. So now I have a selection that you can see a little bit on the downloads layer. It's kind of hard to see, but just switching to downloads, I have the shape of the couch. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to invert that selection. So I'm going to go Select, Inverse, or Control-Shift-I or Command-Shift-I on it. Back. And then I just want to delete the outside, but in order to do that I have to rasterize the layer first. So now I can hit delete, and now I have the shape of the couch there. So now to let the couch show through, what I need to do is I'm going to deselect, Command D, and I'm going to come up to my layer modes and see which one looks the nicest on here. So Multiply gives me a really nice looking couch. I kind of like that a lot. Let's keep Multiply in mind. It's funny how often Multiply works. Color Burn works really nicely too. Linear Burn, a lot of these are looking nice. Some of them not at all. So if I wanted a lighter color, maybe I could get away with Screen, but I'm not loving Screen either. Overlay isn't terrible. It's pretty realistic looking. Soft Light is a little better. I kind of like Linear Burn the best on this. Pattern's a little big for the image, but so going with something a little softer like Multiply may work even better. Alright, so I have Multiply selected, and I can just merge that down to the couch and finish up painting the legs, or I could actually put a texture on the legs and get a really decent looking couch there. So that's how you make a couch. Notice the cushions are looking a little curved and rounded. I got some nice highlights and shadows on here. I painted in some shadows. I have some shadows that I just plop color on. Soften the edges so that it's not so square. This corner is a little not as rounded as the other corner. And if that's bothering you, you can come in to Zoom, click on that corner, and you can probably just use the eraser tool or select a curve there. That's what I would probably do, select a curve. So best way to do that, I think, is with the pen tool. So I'm going to go to the pen tool, which is right here. I'm going to come along here and give it a curve that I want. I want this on this set for path. So now I'm going to come here, kind of where I want the curve to start. I'm going to come down to here, make it curve. Then I can just select out here anywhere I want, close that path, make selection, turn the path into a selection, and then hit delete. And now I can deselect by Control or Command D, or just select deselect. And now if I zoom back out, Control 0, I have a pretty decent looking couch there. And it's all hand drawn except for the overlay texture. Alright, so getting all those guidelines in from the beginning was really kind of necessary to get the couch looking the way it does. So if you want a realistic couch, you're going to go through the work of making this box first where the main couch is, and then giving yourself the lines to put the other parts in. I'm going to show you one more thing. When I put my texture on the carpet, I kind of overran the floor a little bit. So one of the things I could do there is to get that off more easily. I can use the polygonal lasso tool, and I can hide the couch if I want, so that's not there anymore. And I can just start in the corner, click, drag it out to where I need it to be so that I get exactly the carpet trim to the wall. Go above, it doesn't matter. Come back to the wall here, and then drop it down. And that carpet is still on a separate layer. I haven't merged it yet. So if I hit delete, I can just trim off that piece of carpet pretty easily. And then when I bring the couch back and hide the selection, so I'm going to select, deselect, and zoom out, Command 0 on a Mac, you can see what my room is looking like right now. So I've got the carpet in place, I've got the couch. The legs were actually on the floor layer, and when I copied and pasted them, I lost part of the legs. So I'm going to have to go in and fix the legs, but it is pretty much good enough for now. I can continue working this and work the room to demonstrate other things, all right? But that's how I would do a couch and make it look like it's in perspective in a room. I could also, what I did with the rounding the edges here, I could do that with these edges as well to make them a little more round. But I'm going to leave it as is for now. All right, have a wonderful day.